What's up everyone, welcome to my pit pushing Whirlwind Earthquakes guide for Season 9 of Diablo 4. First of all, I would like to apologize for the delay on the video. I wanted the video to come out at least 2 weeks ago, if not a bit earlier. But sadly, I was not able to pit push almost at all this season. I was getting insane amount of lag. And I mean 500, sometimes up to 1000. Maybe because of the Varshan boys, whatever. It was just really unplayable, so I had really hard time actually field testing the build and having enough confidence to put it out there with having tested it properly, right? I don't want to put the video guide out there that I cannot back up with my own experience in game, so that's why it took a bit longer. First of all, the written guide is going to be linked down below in the description. This is the variation of the Whirlwind Earthquakes guide that you can find on Maxroll. So first of all, this build is mainly for pit pushing, but you can play it outside of it. You're going to be able to see during the video that I have some footage of doing Infernal Hordes and stuff like that, mainly because we are using Starless. On the previous version we couldn't, but with Starless it's much easier. The build has been able to clear 105. There's some stuff I still could improve on the build, but you know, I just couldn't this season, sadly. 105 was done, 107, probably 108 is gonna be where the build actually fully caps out. But you know, if you just want to farm 100 glyphs, this will be more than enough. So on this video, we're gonna cover the skill and the skill tree, the Paragon of course, the gear, all the uniques, aspect dampers, stats and GAs, and the consumables we're gonna be running, the boss powers, and lastly the Mercenaries of course. As always, links and timestamps will be down below. Now, starting with our skills and skill tree, of course, we're gonna be running our juicy Whirlwind. That's the main skill of the build, right? We take 2 points into Bludgeoning Strike, but it's because we are forced, we don't really use the skill. We're gonna take 1 point into Whirlwind and get all the passives. We're gonna take another point into an Hota, because on this build we will be running Hota. It's basically a Whirlwind Hota build at this point, because we want to take this passive. I'll tell you how we're gonna be proccing the Overpower in a second though. We're gonna be taking all 3 shouts, of course, all of them. And lastly, our ultimate is gonna be Wrath of the Berserker. The reason we use Wrath of the Berserker is because it's slightly more damage than Call of the Ancients, if you can have 100% uptime on it. And by the way, I'm only referring to, you know, the damage buff you get for Call of the Ancients here, not the whole Minion shenanigans, because we are not playing Minions here, right? We're playing Whirlwind. If Whirlwind is not a skill that's being cast most of the time, it's not a Whirlwind build, alright? Well, let's put that out of the way. And our key passive is gonna be Unconstrained, of course. When it comes to our Paragon, it's quite simple. The tree is basically the same, we just swap around a couple of glyphs. So starting off on the first tree, you're gonna be running Higher there. On the second one, we're gonna be running our Rumble, and of course taking the Decimator node. On the third one, and by the way, even though they connect here, go in this order. It's really important to go in this order, okay? On the third one, we're gonna be running Revenge. This is the biggest difference here, because we're gonna be hit a lot, and this will give us a little extra damage mult, right? And of course, we're gonna be taking Blood Rage. Make sure to cap your Berserking damage. We're gonna take on the first board, we're gonna take Martial, and capping our Force of Nature, of course. On the last board, we're going to be taking the Challenger and Weapons Master. This will be, by the way, really important here. This will be the way we're going to be generating most of, if not all, our Fury. It's by weapon swapping like this, right? So, let me actually cover assignment for weapons, because we do need weapon assignment for the Weapon Master, right? To swap. So, we're going to be running the Polearm on Whirlwind. This will allow us to apply Bleed as well from the Whirlwind passive. And we're going to be running the Mace, the 200 Mace on Hota, right? You really need to set this up properly, or else you're going to be running out of Fury quite easily, all right? Now, when it comes to our gear, first of all, our Mythic Unique, it's going to be Starless, of course. It's the only one we're going to use. This just helps the build do a lot. Like, this just makes the build so much easier to play and a bit stronger, but mostly makes the build much easier to play when it comes to resource. Because if you don't have this, you fuck up once or twice, you're out of Fury, right? So this is going to be the way we actually are able to play the build outside the pits and not have too much issues. You're going to be going for the G on the crit chance and masterworking the farthest you can, right? Now, when you go to the other uniques on build, we're going to start with Ugly Bastard. Ideally, you want G on Wrath of the Berserker, and secondarily, you do want the G on the Aggressive Resistance for a bit of tankiness, right? But mostly Wrath of the Berserker, and we're gonna be masterworking it to reduce the cooldown on Wrath of the Berserker. When it comes to our chest piece, we're gonna be running, of course, Mantle of Mountain Fury. This is the reason we run Hota, and this will increase our damage a lot, not only by the chance for earthquakes to deal double damage, which you should get GA and Masterwork. Ideally, the second GA should be defensive stance, but it's not too important. But those are the only stats you truly care about here. By the way, Ugly Bastard, I forgot to mention this. Ugly Bastard, you want to get the high percent roll. Ideally 100, 99 is fine, but ideally 100, right? Going back to the Mantle of Montessori, sorry. The other reason we're gonna increase our damage is because of we can scale duration now. Scaling duration will actually increase the damage we do with our earthquakes by exploding them, which is really good. Our third unique is gonna be Fist of Fate. This is a really incredible unique for builds that don't actually use the skills themselves, right? You're just gonna be going for the GA and the critical strike chance. Any other GA is optional. You do want a good enough roll on the chance to make enemies vulnerable. Attack speed is only quality of life. It makes the build a bit less clunky, swapping abilities, right? But it's not really important at all. Lucky hit chance will increase the chance for you to apply vulnerable damage, but you don't even need those two to be GA. Just need good enough rolls to give you vulnerable uptime. The most important thing here is the effect though. Make sure you get close to 300 as you can. If it is like below 285, it's not even worth considering, okay? Our last unique is gonna be T-Bolt. This one, it's just really good. You're gonna be unstoppable all the time. It's just 20% extra damage. The DR is pretty great. So, really nice. The only GAs you actually care about here is gonna be all stats mostly. Gonna be masterworking that. And secondly, damage reduction while unstoppable. It's really great damage reduction. And lastly, max life. You don't care about the resource at all. It's gonna be, again, all stats, damage reduction, max life, and getting a good roll on the effects is of course really important. They should not be too expensive because every class will drop a T-Bolt will, and most of them are not running them, so getting one with some good GAs should not be too hard. Now, when it comes to our boots, we're gonna be running boots with Strength Warcry, of course. I'm fairly certain GA Warcry will give you a bit more damage. I just wasn't fortunate enough to get one. But yeah, you're gonna be masterworking Warcry regardless. Ideally, you want to one with Strength and Warcry GA, but that might be a bit too expensive. Tempers are gonna be movement speed and earthquake size. We don't really care too much about the rolls, but getting a good earthquake size to get it up to 40 something will be, it will just make clears much easier and consistent. I got unlucky with mine, but it is what it is. When it comes to the aspect though, Ghostwalker. The reason I'm running Ghostwalker instead of, for example, Grasping Whirlwind, it's because since we'll not be casting Whirlwind, we're not gonna have Whirlwind up 24/7, right? Because we're using Hota. The Grasping doesn't work too well, and we already can group enemies quite well with Wrath of the Berserker, the 5 points, right? So you're better off just going with this. This way you can easily group enemies, because on this build, by the way, you can easily group 4 to 5 elite packs. It's quite insane. Sometimes it's not worth it, as you probably could see on my clear on the 105, I only grouped 4 packs once, but it's an option that's there and it's really great. When it comes to the weapons, I'm gonna cover them all together. We're gonna start with all the Earthquakes aspects, right? Earthquakes aspect on the two-hander, and the other one is gonna be Incendiary Fissures on the two-hander again. On the one-handers, we're gonna be running Executioners, the ones that scale with strength, right? You want 4k strength to cap this. And then you're gonna be running Earth Strikers to be able to overpower without them. Yes, you're sacrificing an aspect for it, but by overpowering without that, you also proc Warpath, Auto passive itself for 40%, Warpath for 12, and you proc Decimator as well on the Paragon board for 20 extra. It's really great to get that overpower in. Now, when it comes to tempers, this is really important on the weapons. You want 2 tempers of chance for earthquakes to cast twice. It doesn't matter on which weapons it is, as long as you got 2 of them. You want 2 of duration on a 2-handed weapon. The the tempers are doubled, right? This is why I'm counting them twice. You get this basically counts as 2 tempers, right? So you want the maxed out earthquake duration there as well. You must work it as much as you can. Same for the chance to cast twice. And lastly, on your other weapon, you want 2 tempers of heavy hitter, right? You must work it as much as you can, as always. When it comes to GA, strength is your biggest focus. Going live for critical strike damage, you can probably actually go critical strike damage because the build is quite tanky because of one of the boss powers you're running. If you drop that boss power for a bit more damage, you might actually want to go for GA life as your secondary GA. It's kind of up to you for that much, right? When it comes to our second ring, though, you're gonna want GA critical strike chance early on. You might here you have to actually, your masterwork will depend a bit on the amount of crit you already have. You might get away with masterworking strength. It will depend, but normally you do want the crit GA and then ideally secondarily the secondary GA as a strength, right? You want to roll resists here on the ring. This is the only resist roll you should need, and you should be capped on resist for the most part. We also gonna be running Wrath of the Berserker cooldown. Ideally you want the max roll on here, because if you can actually get the max roll here and fully masterwork it, and the max roll on the amulet, you can kind of do something. You can kind of drop an aspect and get you can not drop an aspect, you can get an extra aspect in. You're probably not gonna get there, so I'm not even gonna cover it. If you end up getting a goblin event where you get a lot of amulets, I'll cover it, but this season it's just unrealistic. On your amulet, first of all, you're gonna want GA strength and ideally +2 to either heavy-handed or counter-offensive. Here, since I got the GA Pit Fighter, it's basically as good as a non-GA counter-offensive, and then I just rolled in the heavy-handed, and you're gonna be masterworking heavy-handed all the way. For the tempers, again, you're gonna be wanting Wrath of the Berserker cooldown as high as you can, and now going over all the additive, all the damage tempers, damage rolls, right? You will want 2 rolls of close damage. Here, I have 1, 2, counts twice on 2-handed weapons again. I have there and here. Yes, here for close damage, so 4 rolls. You're gonna want 1 roll of berserking damage, which I have on this weapon here, and then all your other slots will be Wrath of the Berserker damage, right? You have 1 here on the sword, on the ring, and then lastly on the amulet. That's gonna be it for our gear. When it comes to consumables, you will want your Elixir of Precision. You're gonna run either a Spiral of the Morning you probably will need. I don't think, unless you're like really close to 300 Paragon, you're not gonna have enough all stats to actually cover all the Paragon rare nodes. So you should go for Spiral of the Morning for the all stats. Then you're gonna be running for the Max Life 1, Rhythm in Buzz. And lastly, you're gonna be running Soothing Spices for the 10% max resistance. We don't really care about the armor, we are more than armor capped with Mountain Mantle's Fury and all the strength we get, but we're mostly running it for the resists there. Now, when it comes to our boss powers, the stars of this season, oh yeah, before we go out of gear, runes, really important, runes, right? So how we're proccing Earthquake on the build, it's gonna be with Ignitech. We're gonna be constantly swapping between Whirlwind and Hota, and every now and again you'll be able to proc an Earthquake just naturally. One thing, the Earthquake will spawn wherever your cursor is. So if you have your cursor all the way in Narnia, let's say you have a wide monitor, that Earthquake will spawn there. Now, this is good and bad. Bad because you need to constantly keep your cursor on top of the enemy, so you need to be careful there. But it's really freaking good if you actually use it tactically to pull enemies, right? I normally spawn an Earthquake on the corner of my screen to hit an elite pack that I cannot see yet, but I see the small ads they have, right? I just pull the elite pack like that. It's really great if you know how to use it, right? Now, on the other rune combo, I'm running Neo Zik. This will be the way you actually reduce all the cooldown on Wrath of Berserker. As long as Wrath of Berserker is like 20 or so, you will be fine. Regardless, 20 or so seconds, you'll be fine because you'll get a couple of seconds from the shout, right? Every time you use a shout. And then this will give you every 2 seconds, you'll reduce 2 seconds of the ultimate. So during the duration of the Berserker, you'll get 10 seconds reduction from this rune alone. It's really great. I just remembered I forgot to talk about the aspects here. On the ring, as always, bold shiften. On the amulet, battle mad. You're constantly swapping weapons, so you'll proc it quite easily, and this will be another source of berserking. In case Wrath of the Berserker and the Warcry is not enough, this will also give you, but we're mostly running it for the 60% mode, which is quite great. Now, actually going to the start of the season, boss powers. Now, our main boss power, of course, Wandering Dead. This is insane on any channeling build. It's 50% molt, as long as you're hitting enemies with your beam and you frankly should, you're playing Whirlwind, right? On our secondary boss power, Harbinger of Hatred Volley. Now, you might look at this, oh, you're not using basic skills, how the hell are you proccing this? We don't care about that first part, right? The casting basic skill, whatever, we don't care about that. We care about the activating your main boss power grants 30% increased vulnerable damage, right? This you'll easily proc because you're constantly swapping into Whirlwind, right? You'll easily proc it. It's not that hard. The secondary power you're going to be running is Lilith's Wind of Hate. The reason we're running this on pit pushing, it's not because you're going to be able to kill blisters, because besides on the elites you'll be able to blow them up, which will increase your clear a bit. On the bosses you'll not. The reason they are there is because they are an extra target for your shouts to get the cooldown on, right? Really good. If you actually have 24% on your bolt shift, then just getting the boss and 2 blisters will be enough to give you the full reset, not full reset, but full cooldown on your shout. It's really great, and it's one of the reasons we can go 3 shouts instead of using Stomp this season. Lastly, for our last power, we're running Blackmailer. This is insanity when it comes to survivability, right? You're constantly getting 45 from Rolling Cry, and you just keep getting in copious amounts of shield. It's insane. You'll never die if you run this. Now, you do have the option of running Cineratt's Flames if you want a bit more damage. But let me tell you, pit this season is scary. If you do want to push for the highest clear, you'll have to manage going Cineratt's Flames and really try hard to survive. If you can't be bothered and you just want to level your glyphs, just put Blackmailers in. You'll never have to worry about surviving as long as you're constantly pressing a Rallying Cry, which you should anyway. But yeah. Lastly, when it comes to our Mercenaries, let's go over here to our Mercenaries. Our main Mercenary is of course going to be right here. Biggest reason, it's going to be the resists, right? 15 resists is really great. This is how we'll be able to cap a resist. Secondarily, this passive right here will give you 15% molt every now and again, and 25% molt every now and again as well. This is basically as good as Subos, and it gives you the resist, so it's quite great. For our secondary one, we're gonna be running, what's his name again? Aldecain. We're gonna be running it on the Fields of Languish. This will just give us an additional DR every now and again, which, you know, just to make sure nothing else really matters too much. And you're just gonna put this on Whirlwind because you're gonna have Whirlwind constantly up, so it's just gonna be constantly proccing. You can also put it on Hota because you're casting Hota 24/7. So yeah, just put it on one of those two and you'll be fine. Now, lastly, on this video guide, I do want to talk about a bit about the playstyle because you do need to know a couple of things. First of all, right, really important, you do need to, again, have your cursor mostly on top of enemies. Not only do you need to spawn your earthquakes there, you also want to hit them with the Dead's Beam, right? It's really important for you to hit them with the beam because that will increase your damage by 50%, right? Now, not only that, you do want to avoid, to the best of your capabilities, exploding your earthquakes a bit early. Ideally, you want them to tick for like 3 to 4 seconds and then you explode them. This is not, you don't need to do this to maximize, like, this will not improve your damage drastically, sorry. It's not going to improve your damage drastically, but it might just be those 30 extra seconds you need in a pit. Again, it's not super easy to do it, but if you can help it, try and go for it. Again, this is pit pushing. I'm just going to talk how to maximize the damage on the build. Lastly, whenever you get to a boss, make sure to, first of all, always beam the boss first with the boss power, so you can proc the blisters. That way, whenever you shout, your shout's go on an 8-second cooldown, instead of going on their max cooldown, right? Because you're only hitting the boss. That's quite important. I don't think there's too much to say here. Just make sure you drop earthquakes, you don't lose too much aggro. As long as the enemies are being hit by earthquakes, you'll not lose aggro, so that's how you can pull multiple packs. I know this season some people are having a lot of issues pulling more than 2 packs. In the clear, you could see me pull 4. On some of my tries, I even pulled 6. I could probably have done it on the clear, but since I was lagging, I didn't want to risk it, because when you're lagging, the mobs don't quite move too frequently, and it's really hard. But you can totally do it if you actually learn to, maintain the aggro. But yeah, I think that's gonna be it. If I remember anything else that I want to mention about the playstyle, I'll leave it down in the pinned comment down below. But yeah, hope you enjoyed the build. Let me know how it goes. If you have any questions, drop them either on my Discord or down below in the comments. I'll be sure to answer them. And yeah, thanks for watching. Have fun out there, and see you next time for a bit of Whirlwind, or maybe next season I'm actually going to be messing around with lunging. You can drop by the stream tomorrow if you want to see how the PTR is going. Yeah, this video is so late, we already have the PTR, god damn it. But yeah, see you tomorrow then, or maybe on the next video. Bye bye.